think, as far as, between the introductions and everything, people still have a couple of minutes to join. So.
Okay, Miljan, can we start?
Sure.
Great. So good evening, everyone. Good day to Milan and guests from the United States. Today's topic is the 4 lenses that every Scrum Master should use. And today's guest is our dear friend, Miljan. Miljan is one of the 50 professionals in the world that holds both certificates, Enterprise Coach and Certified Scrum Trainer designation from Scrum Alliance. Additionally, he teaches Agile leadership and process environment in the University of Southern Maine and organization change at the University of Southern New Hampshire. He is also a frequent speaker, having participated in many international conferences and Agile events in Europe and the United States. And today he is on our meetup Scrum Wednesdays. Miljan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both to Boris and Bogdan for inviting me. We were at this retreat that Milos here and a couple of people organized. And I learned about this meetup that they organized. So I was invited and I was happy that I was invited. So just a little bit about myself. I tried to use the mural here. I don't have any slides, so it's going to be a fairly interactive session. Or it could potentially be interactive, we'll see. Maybe just put the mural link one more time in case anybody else is interested in joining. So you can, again, look at my screen. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Am I sharing? Yeah. Or you can just observe and watch. I tried to, these are really good photos of the cities that I have lived in, and I'm originally from Sarajevo. My family moved to United States in late 94, 95. We moved to Portland, Maine, which is about a couple hours north of Boston. And I went to middle school, high school there, and eventually went to Rhode Island to college and started a web development company there. I worked with a couple of clients. This is early 2000s. Worked a couple of clients in Boston, and this is where I first heard terms Agile. And then I started working with Jeff Sutherland. Went to Jeff Sutherland's class and got involved in the community there in Boston. And one thing led to another, and that became kind of what I did. And we started offering these services to our clients as well. Over the last 3 years, I've been living in California. So I spent about 20 or almost 20 years in Northeast, and I can tell you that I've been enjoying California, but I'm going to go back to the East Coast here in a couple of months, and I'm kind of dreading it. I do have a book that's coming out. It's called Wicked Leadership, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with Wicked Problems. You can Google it, but essentially it's complex problems. Like, for instance, COVID-19 is a wicked problem. So it's how do you lead in that type of complex environment. So the first exercise that we'll do here, and I ask this in every class that I do, I have to pick between these 2 covers. So if you like cover 1, type in 1 in chat. If you like cover 2, type in 2 in the chat in Zoom. Yeah, typically you guys are not making it easy for me. So I'll save the chat. I don't know if anybody cares. They can just add them up, but generally more people have liked number 2. I personally like number 1 because it represents the topics, but thank you for giving me some feedback. I also, if you want to check out a couple of my articles, first of all, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, You can just double click on my picture up here. If you want to check out a couple articles that are specific to the Scrum Master role and given the topic here, this one is Demise of the Scrum Master role. Essentially, I wrote a couple of years ago about how Scrum Master role is going away because most people don't see the value in it. And this one here is I recently wrote about cooks and chefs and relating this. So if you're interested in learning more about those, you can just double click, or I don't know if Bogdan or Boris can just copy paste the links, and so people can. So what I would like to talk to you today is this concept from my book, and it's based on, I don't know if anybody is familiar with integral theory and a kind of holistic way of looking at things. So what I would like to share with you today, as far as like why as a Scrum Master coach, or for that matter, anybody should be looking at organization holistically rather than just through maybe one perspective, and what it means to look at the organization holistically. So think of these as 4 quadrants or 4 lenses that we essentially look at the same organization through these 4 different lenses. So you're looking at the same space just through different perspectives. So on the right side here, we have visible side, and this is usually like the doing agile part. So for instance, your systems, your company structure, company policies, either HR, finance, your strategy, your goals would be down here within the systems. Your practices like daily stand-ups, like habits, behaviors would be up here. So things that are more individual based or team based would be typically up here. Things that are collective and more company-wide would be down here. So actions and systems are more of doing agile. And think about like standing here in the middle and facing out to the right. You can observe these things. However, on the left side, where we have mindset and culture, these are a lot harder to observe and measure. And a lot of agile efforts and a lot of Scrum Masters focus on this right side rather than the left side. And we just have to kind of look at what's the interplay between all of these. So for today's session, I'm going to try to help you, and we're going to explore these 4 lenses and see how they influence each other. So the first exercise that we're going to do here, I created a little happiness metric index for across the 4 lenses. So what we'll do first is we're going to go through each of these lenses. We'll start with the systems, and I think there are 12 check marks here. If there's more people, then just copy paste somebody else's check mark. Sure what's going. I think I have to. So for the first one here, for those of you that do want to participate, we're gonna start with these 5 here. So if you look at it from, for instance, this first one, responsibilities and accountabilities are clear in my organization or on my team. Typically, you want to look at your organization, but if you're not sure, you can look at your team or your program. And just on scale 1 to 5, 1 being they're not very clear, 5 being very clear, just grab one of these icons and put them into one of these spaces. So whoever, again, you can, anybody that wants to participate. And if they overlap, that's okay. Just put them somewhere so we know roughly where things are. And then you can go down for the rest of these. Policies and processes are effective. This means that hopefully you know, or you can just gauge if they are or not. Company vision is your guiding principle. IT systems are agile and can be quickly changed. And you can already see here, it's kind of, a little bit all over the place, which is what reality looks like. Now for the, if you look at all of these 5, across the board, just roughly see where you put. Hopefully you're using same colors. If not, that's okay. Just look and average the 5 down below and just put a sticky up here based on what the average across these 5 is under the system. So essentially you're tallying up these and dividing or whatever. It's just, you know, this is just roughly speaking. And again, this bottom right lens, the system lens, is where our organizational governance, structure, policies live. Okay, so I'll give people maybe one more second here to vote. Is it easy for others to follow? Yeah, you can see everything. Yeah, okay. All right, so roughly here, 3s and 4s. Let's go up here under actions, and I'll summon you guys up here. So here, the first one is leaders are transparent and involved with your teams, with how they operate. Decisions are based on what's best for all, or at least customers are considered, employees. So it's more of a balanced approach versus, what's best just for the company and stockholders. Your planning process is effective, rewards and compensations are fair, and you apply appropriate work practices. And again, just do the average. And again, the actions lens up here is kind of, things that you can observe, behavior, practice like daily stand-up, like, are your leaders coercing and forcing you to change, like you have to do agile because everybody's doing agile, or they're part of it? Do they see it just as, hey, this is for the teams? And okay, so let's move now to the left side here on mindset. Oh, I don't think I locked this one. If you can do Control Z to unlock, because somebody moved this line and I'm having some mouse issues. Thank you. So for the mindset here, same thing. My feelings are transparent and open. How much are you willing to share your own feelings, and how comfortable, how much safety is there, psychological safety? Do your colleagues and team members care about you, or is it just everybody cares about it themselves for most part? How often do you consider other perspectives? And this is what always amuses me. People people rate themselves very high. This is always the case, 4s and 5s. And then if I used to switch the question, and I would say, like, instead of you, my feelings, but my colleagues' feelings are transparent and open. And then everybody puts like 2s and 1s and 3s when it's somebody else. But when it's me, I'm pretty high on all of these, which is interesting, like just how aware are we of our bias and actually what we do. And again, yeah, just add the averages up here. And then down below for the culture, do the same thing. Are decisions made together, share goals, teams are encouraged to have fun, employees are your biggest asset, organizational change is everybody's business, in a sense, like it's not just, oh, we have a team that's driving the change, but everybody is involved in evolving the organization. And our company tradition is important to you. And again, for this one, do the averages for culture. Okay. So now for the last thing across the 4 areas, just do the averages for the whole 4 lenses. So this is pretty good. Like, mostly it's 3s and 4s. 1, 2. So generally speaking, hopefully for those 4s especially, you like where you work. You're fairly happy, I hope. This is a representation of where you're at. So what we'll do here next, this was just to kind of get us familiar with the 4 lenses here, or to look at the organization. I'll move us up here to the next exercise. And up here, there's a bunch of little yellow stickies. And what you're going to be doing is moving these yellow stickies. So for instance, this first one here is natural environment. So for instance, natural environment could be like, am I working in the Balkans, or am I working in Northeast of United States, or am I working in India, or am I working in I don't know, South of the United States, whatever it is, right? So, outside policies, organizational structures that are influenced by laws and things like that, that would be natural environment. And that would fall down into the systems lens. So what you would do is, I can't, for some reason, my mouse is acting up again. But I would move this, oh, there we go. I would move the sticky down here into the systems. So what you're going to be doing is just drag, and for those of you that are participating, drag these yellow, look at it, what it is, and just put it into one of these 4 quadrants. When you're done and all the cards are moved down, you can change the color. If you see one that you don't think it's there, change the color to a different color than yellow. Essentially, that indicates, I don't think it should be down here. I think it should be somewhere else. Don't move the card. Just if you don't agree, let me just see here. If somebody puts teaching here and like, I don't think teaching is here, I think it's down, here or here, just change the color if you disagree with that one once all the cards are moved over. So you can start moving those yellows into whatever area you feel like it belongs to. Finally, my mouse is working. So again, if you feel like you can, I think probably there's a couple more left up here. One more. Now just see what's in each quadrant and just highlight the ones that you don't think should be there. And I'll do the same thing here. Okay. Maybe one more minute and then we'll okay. So let's go through these and just see, and I might talk about, specifically as a Scrum Master, why you should care about these and where they fall. So let's start first with the systems. Remember, this is policies, architecture. So physical space is something that's related to the whole organization, and it should be down here. Causal loop diagrams is a practice. It's a systems thinking practice. So it's up here with the practices. So for instance, why should you, as a Scrum Master, care about systems thinking and causal loop diagramming, for instance? Well, as a Scrum Master, if you don't really know what systems thinking is or practice like causal loop diagramming, how can you help others see things systematically and understand what's the interplay between different? Structure, again, I'll share with you, but if you have like a matrix type of structure, like, and if you need to change the organizational structure, what would you do? Compensation is a policy. Skills, that's probably up here in the practices and behaviors. So somebody got that. Strategy, processes, natural environment, architectures. Yeah, all of this is good. Up here, we have coaching. As a Scrum Master, you should be familiar with coaching. You should know more than, Scrum is up here. Decision making, budgeting should be down below. Budgeting is usually company-wise. It's a system. Products and services is usually down in the bottom right. Audits is bottom right. Trust should be here on the left. Conflict management is probably in the right place here. It's a how do you deal with conflict management. Facilitating, planning, Kanban, all of these are up here. Now, if we look at the mindset piece, attitude, growth, mindset, motivation, values, thinking, tradition would be down in a culture. All of these are habits would be on the right here. Habits are observable. So think of the left side is harder to observe. The right side is easier to observe. So these are all correct. And then if we look at the culture, invisible norms, shared meaning, shared stories, shared needs, ethics, language, teaching would be more of a practice up here. Work, climate, flow of communication, shared. Flow of communication is probably that here on the right. Shared purpose, that's correct. Yeah, all of these are correct. So if we look at this as a Scrum Master, if you don't fully understand psychology, if you don't fully understand what motivates people, how can you really help your team? If you have 5 people on your team, 10 people on your team, how do you know how their different motivations, their views, beliefs align to a common goal? So it wasn't really till I started understanding psychology and understanding how people behave, what motivates them, that I fully was effective at what I do. So if you want to be a good Scrum Master, you better start understanding how do I better understand others and their motivations, and how do I influence them. As far as the actions piece, this is kind of where we focus the most. Like, oh, you need to know Kanban, you need to know all these scaling frameworks, you need to know how to facilitate, you need to know how to, help the senior leaders or people make better decisions. You have to be a coach as a Scrum Master. All of that is great. And think of all of the tangible skills are in the top right, what are called horizontal skills. The vertical skills are all here on the left side, which is really like the way that it's been described is, think about this as capacity. If you have a bottle of water. If you can fill up this one, this is only, I don't know, 0.33. But you know, growing the left side is like having a liter bottle and increasing your capacity rather than just filling up what you already have. So another question is here is, how often are you willing to challenge your own beliefs? How well do you know yourself as a Scrum Master? And down below is really, how do you look at the systems? How do you look at the organizational structure? How do you look at, you know, policies? Like a lot of times in organizations, HR and finance are the last ones to change, and they probably should be one of the first ones to change. And you know, you might say, as a Scrum Master, I have no authority or way to do anything there. But you know, how much do you know about value stream mapping? How much do you know about organizational design and design patterns and things like that? And obviously, if you're just supporting one team, you might not care. But if you really want to be a good Scrum Master and Agile coach, you're gonna understand the systems and what's down here when it comes to changing the systems within the organization. So if we zoom out, I'll pause before I move on to the last section here, talking about what needs to change across these four lenses in organizations. And what I'll try to do is tie everything that we've done so far and I've talked about, and put it in from a practical standpoint, what needs to happen in order for organizations to deal better with complexity or these wicked problems. So any questions or thoughts on anything so far before we move on?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere I'm getting a feeling, connection. In, uh, is it similar to the integral theory that we have about?
Mm-hmm. That's what
Yeah.
it's based on. So that's what I said at the beginning. It's based on the integral theory. It's just applied towards agile and organizational change. So there's, in a sense, it's a new way to look at it. And you know, if you follow like what Mike Spade and Lisa Atkins did, you know, several years ago with Integral, it's same idea. Same, they did, you know, I'm just presenting it and looking at it same way that they took the integral theory and presented it in the, you know, through their own perspective. That's what I'm doing here. It's just it's a tool. It's a tool to help us understand kind of what's going on. So if we look at organization, well, let me see if anybody else has any. Does this make sense to you guys? Yeah. Okay.
So although it does make sense, it's just my view here is Scrum Mastery still focuses mostly on the top right
Actions. Well,
actions.
organizational changes. If you think about, like, you know, we think by not even changing the structure, we think like just, oh, we'll have teams do Scrum, and you know, somehow everything else will change. Which is a good segue here for down below. So if we look at orange, and this is kind of similar, I'm sticking to the theme of, if you're familiar with reinventing organizations, and by the way, he's applied the same concept here. Orange representing, you know, waterfall, and I'm combining kind of green and teal here, but just to simplify things in a sense. So if we look at through these four lenses, and I'm just using 3 examples, and if you want, you can add icons here as we go through each one of these. But think about, like, when it comes to structure in organization, we move from function-based organizations, hierarchies that are pretty, you know, top down, to more of product-based structures or end-to-end value streams, right? So your organization needs to rethink the structure and move towards more of dedicated, I guess, flatter structures. So if you think your organization has a lot of silos and hierarchy, You can put an icon closer here, and it can be spectrum in orange. If you think you have product-based structure, you can put it here in the product-based or green. So just for, again, for those of you that want to interact, you can just add an icon here. Another thing is if you have big monolithic systems versus highly decoupled systems. So how easy is it to deploy to production or to deliver value with confidence? So again, if you have large, big systems where it's really hard, like, you know, this is versus if you have. And then the third one here is what kind of policies do you have? You know, if you have annual reviews, that's very orange. And if you understand how annual reviews are, annual budgeting, you know, if you budget per cost center rather than per product line, it would be here in orange. More adaptive things would be where you budget, you get rid of annual reviews and you start doing more of coaching and real-time feedback. So you can see here, just from this perspective, there's a lot of things that are here in orange. If we go up to the practices, do you have, and this is behaviors, and again, I'm just picking three things. We go from, you know, do you have leaders that are imposing change? They're not really part of the change, it's just they're telling others what to do. Or do you actually have people that are co-creating and being part of the change? They know that as senior leaders, especially like, you know, people at top of the company, are they eating, you know, their own dog food and what they're saying, or are they just telling, you know, everybody else? Are you doing kind of waterfall practices, or are you doing Scrum, Kanban, or some type of agile, empirical type of approach? So this would be define, what's called define or empirical. And then, you know, is your organization still thinking, predict, and plan? Like, it's almost, I use analogy like, hey, we think we're on rails and like everything's predictable, trains are on time. Or does your organization think it's more in inspect and adapt, like it's sailing in the ocean and trying to adapt based on, you know, what's going on? When it comes to mindset, how often do you see, or maybe this is yours, because really, you know, for the mindset, you know, you can think about what others are, what's in somebody else, but, you know, you can hear for yourself. How often do you actually consider other people's perspective? How much do you practice empathy? And as a Scrum Master, you should know the difference between empathy and sympathy and understanding. How much of ego do you have? Fixed mindset versus growth mindset, you know, in a sense like, oh, you know, as a Scrum Master, I don't need to know about this, or I don't need to know about that. When you look at the culture, is there a lot of command and control or collaborate and cultivate? One of the first things when I go in an engagement, and when I go in and they say like, go tell my teams what to do, really, people have told me, go fix them. Right? There's big difference when you do that versus when you say like, hey, my team needs help, go help them figure these things out, but don't, you know, almost coach them rather than, you know, just tell them, give them, teach them how to fish. I don't know how many of you have been part of organizations, happens here a lot in the United States, where, you know, a new leader comes in and says, oh yeah, we're all about our employees and our customers. And, you know, a month later, layoffs come. And usually a manager comes to a person and says, you have 10 minutes to pack your stuff. I'm going to walk you up to the front door. Usually happens to developers for security issues. So, you know, somebody doesn't start messing up things. But this is where companies very, very selfish. And it's like, for maybe, you know, a couple of $1 million, it's not a lot in grand scheme of things. They say, oh yeah, we're focused on people. And then they fire people like that or lay them off. And it feels like somebody died. I don't know if anybody has experienced that, but that's what the feeling is when things like this happen. And nobody's doing anything for the next 2 weeks. So is it, you know, so I use analogy. I put Boeing just throwing people out without parachute versus Southwest, where they're known for how they treat their employees and people. In 2008, Southwest said, when the financial crisis happened, we're not going to fire anybody or lay off anybody. It's much better for all of us to feel a little bit of pain than for few of us to feel a lot of pain. And again, do you have a lot of bureaucracy or a lot of transparency in your organization? So if we look at these four lenses, or when we look through these four lenses, you can see that there's a lot of things in orange, and think of orange as waterfall traditional approaches, and think of green as agile, dealing better with complexity. So in order for change to happen in an organization, it has to happen across all of these four rather than just, usually it's up here, and it's usually on the right side here because these are the things that you can measure. So I'll open it up for discussion. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. And we have about 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So I'll open it for discussion. How much, I guess, value, or what are you seeing here? What kind of questions do you have for me? Doesn't make sense? Is this more confusing? Usually when I do this, people say, I now know why my organization's so fucked up. But
So I have a very fundamental question here. So as a change agent, right, now we understand that these are the four lenses of a Scrum Master or any change agent for that matter. The main thing is, where do we start? And first thing is, you are not magicians that you can change it all. Now, should we start focusing on the mindset? Or I mean, culture, we always say culture is the last thing. You just don't change the culture overnight. It just happens over time. So where do we start?
Exactly. So yeah, that's a really good question, Lynette. It starts with mindset, right? If you can. So there, unless they're saying, systems influence the culture. The way it happens is really that these three mindsets, systems, and actions influence culture more than anything else. So the culture, like you said, is a result of changing or what's going on in the other three. So typically, there are a couple of ways. There's not, usually I thought it's like almost infinity, like you change the mindset, the leaders, if you can change leaders' mindset, then they're change the system. Because if you think about an orange organization where authority lies, it lies with maybe 1% of people in an organization. So if somebody's not willing to change the systems in organization, like HR, like finance, like organizational structure and governance, it's going to be hard. So usually when I go in organizations, I see how much appetite there is for changing the mindset. Because ultimately, if you have people like senior leaders that are very ego driven, that have fixed mind and limited point of view, then you have to meet them where they are. So I spend a lot of time trying to help them understand that they're in orange. A lot of times they don't know that they're in orange. So a lot of coaches, a lot of Scrum Masters try to push and say, oh, come to Agile side. They're not gonna, like, they're just gonna say, see you later, right? What you need to do is help them understand this, and how that, looking from this perspective and being in orange is limiting them and their company. They have to walk here. You can't say, oh, do Agile or think this way. They have to do that themselves. Once you do that, then you can start having conversations. How do we restructure? How do we change the policies? How do we change, what is our, structure as far as architecture, both business and IT? Both of these, the mindset is going to change and influence the actions, right? Especially like if you change the structures. Just think about like something as, I'm not going to call it stupid, but adopting SAFe. SAFe is a structural, a lot of it is structural change, hopefully, or a lot of times it's not, it's just sugar coating on top of orange, right? But it's going to force you to do certain type of practices. So it starts with mindset. If you can, if not, change the system, and then hopefully the system exposes certain things and the mindset change. But it will be between mindset and system. I'm not sure which one first. It depends.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point. Based on my experiences, so I always thought like that. Okay, let's start with the mindset. And when we communicate with the employees, for that matter, and why are they having a fixed mindset or a unsafe environment inside? The response typically is, "Hey, we can be collaborative, but look at our policies." So we are behaving like this, or our mindset or mental models have become like this because of the existing systems or the policies, you can say.
Exactly. So that's why sometimes changing the system, put somebody in a house that's on fire. Their minds, or like keep them in long in that in type of environment, we're gonna start believing things that, so it's like, if we can change the system influences, our environment influences, this. So that's why I said, like, it's different when I coach teams and when I do trainings and things in the Balkans. It's different when I do things in the United States. The mindset, the beliefs, values, it's different. So like, you have, as a Scrum Master, as a coach, you have to adjust your perspective and approach. And what this is, it's a framework to look at things, as far as like where, it's almost like, it's a tool, to sense making tool, to understand which approach should I apply in this given situation.
I will also add that there is a distinction around the adapted mindset and my natural mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And even some personality tests do make the distinction because, as you said, systems influence our behavior, but it doesn't mean I don't have that mindset. Maybe I'm like that, behaving like that only at work because of the system, but in private, I do have a growth mindset. It's just in a
Exactly.
different field
Yeah.
of life. So it's also, that's one of the situations that if you see that the leadership has the mindset, but the structure is inhibiting, then you work on the structure, right, on the system, and you don't need to work on the mindset. Versus you have a leader that firmly believes that, I don't know, everybody's lazy and they need to be controlled all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's more around developing their mindset and different views and maybe empathy, and you might be able to start with an experiment. So sometimes even an action would be first thing that you do, just to demonstrate a thing. And I think that's the when we talk about the coaching approach, that's the thing. You really, when you look at this, then you analyze. There's no one answer because it's a wicked problem, right? So you analyze this, and then you decide for that particular company, or even for a particular leader inside of that company, do I start with the mindset or with the structure or with the action? What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, just to build on the top of what Miller's saying. A lot of times these are disconnected, right? So just to use something that's current, like, racism, let's just say, I could be very racist, but my actions, because of the system doesn't encourage me to be racist, my actions are, I'm just complying with the system and everything, but what I'm thinking is different than what my behaviors are in practice. Or it could be the other way around. So that's why this is harder to see and observe, and there could be disconnect between these, but our systems could be forcing us to mask, and our practices could be forcing us to mask what's here, what's going on here. So as a Scrum Master, I'm always, or a coach, when I'm going in, I'm trying to understand what people are through their actions, if their actions are connected to some of the other things that they're doing, and what they might be thinking, because this is exposes a lot of times what they're doing, or sometimes it masks what's going on inside somebody's heads and what they value. Other questions, thoughts?
What about the idea generally that you should be in balance and expanding like among the perimeter, not in any particular pattern or whatever?
So you're saying like, hey, it's not about just being in green or orange, it's about balance.
Yeah. So actually, I looking at it that way, you could say that, for example, I don't know, a growth mindset could be a source of frustration if everything else is in stable system or waterfall system. Let's not call it stable, whatever.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, if you're familiar with spiral dynamics, of some of these cognitive development frameworks, or it's essentially, it's a balance. It is a balance. One, if you're operating from orange, you don't know about green, right? You're mostly operating here, and usually you might have a little bit. And in my book, I call it like, operating systems. Like, if you loaded one operating system and you never upgraded, it's hard to know what that looks like. But when you're operating from this, you know what fixed mindset looks like. And one of the key things is being able to load up or switch between these based on environment. So this is, if you're familiar as a Scrum Master, differences between complicated and complex, right? You first have to read what environment are we in. So almost use that approach, or you could almost use Knaven before this framework, like Knaven, and to say, okay, what environment am I in? And then how do I look and adjust these lenses based on the environment? But it's never, to answer your question, it's never one or the other. It's not binary. There's a mix of these, but it's the way to look at it is which one dominates more, and the one that dominates more, how is it, how how well suited is it for the environment down there? That's really, if it's working, great. But if you're applying these approaches, usually if you apply these orange approaches in a very complex environment, most of the time they'll backfire. So that's the key, kind of understanding the situation, understanding the environment, and then saying, okay, what needs to happen here?
Thanks.
Other thoughts, questions? What confuses you? What, any aha moments for anybody? What confuses you about this? Any other questions about anything else? We have maybe 5 more minutes.
I can make a comment, and maybe Miljan, you can tell me your experience from it based on what Bogdan said. But from a perspective, when you enter a relationship or try to create an alliance with leadership as Scrum Master or a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, I usually use these lenses to try to predict and listen very carefully. Who am I talking to? Because then if I understand their motivations are coming from orange or green teal, I can better serve them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know better motivators, if you're talking about goals, if you're talking about incentives, and what do you want to achieve based on leadership and where they are with their mindset, then I can get effective alliances quicker, and then move something together, because we form partnership versus I'm this green guy who is fighting the orange guy stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I start speaking their language. And then they can really see that I am serving them, not trying and forcing them into something that they don't believe in. How did you use something similar, or how do you approach it with specific leaders when you create alliances?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you and I have talked about this, in a sense of, in some context. But what happens a lot of times is, especially like the more that you go up the pole as far as senior leaders and C-suite, like most people don't fully understand what Agile or Scrum is. They're trying to solve the problems, and it just means to an end. So if I know, like, I have somebody that's very oriented on results, that's very about like, hey, it's me, like, I don't even talk about Agile. I talk about their problems, right? And I know like their problems is I have to talk about like how it relates to them achieving those goals. And if I'm not aligned and if I'm not talking to their problems, you know, the my time with them doesn't last much long. So that's with the senior leaders, right? In a sense, you have to meet them where they are, and then, as I said, help them understand the implications of them thinking this way, the way that they're thinking, maybe being biased towards certain types of structures or policies. Like you said, if somebody doesn't trust people, you don't change that person's perspective. You can't just say, hey, you know, Miloš, you have to trust your people. That doesn't happen. They have to come to their own conclusion. At the team level, what I do is try to understand the team members. And if I'm talking like to a developer that doesn't care about anything else, they just want to code. I can't just say Scrum says you have to be self-managed team. You know, most people, you know, so you have to kind of help them understand what's the complication of them just saying, I'm not gonna, let's just say test, I'm gonna do this. Or so a lot of it, like Vinay said, it starts up here. And that's why coaching as a Scrum Master is so essential, to help people kind of be able to see it. You put a mirror to themselves, see themselves, and be able to say, holy, I've been with people and they say, holy shit, I didn't know what kind of asshole I was. And now I know. And you can't tell somebody you're an asshole, they'll just be like, you know, you're an asshole too. But it's really helping people at the team level, or whatever, if you're coach, enterprise coach, depending who you're working mostly with. But it starts up here, and ultimately changing the structure will help change the culture and the behaviors. But I go in and I say, again, if you're not familiar with spiral dynamics and the color codes and all that, but I go in and I say, what type of person is this person? You know, orange, green. How's my approach going to change based on their values and beliefs? Because I have to align with somebody else's beliefs first. So I don't know. I know we have a couple of minutes here, but and some of this might be over your head. This is a fairly complex topic, and the integral framework and spiral dynamics, which is this is based on, is fairly deep. But as a Scrum Master, like I guess my last recommendation would be, you know, to understand, if you're not familiar with systems thinking, if you're not familiar with systems and complexity management approaches, Scrum is just, you know, I say like, you know, Agile is like ice cream and Scrum is vanilla. If you only know vanilla, you know, you're gonna know the whole culinary spectrum, not just, you know, how to make ice cream. And Scrum is like vanilla ice cream. There's a lot more, you know, to the whole complexity management in Scrum. And our world is just Agile Scrum, Agile Scrum. Most people, most Scrum Masters don't even know. If you ask them how to untangle Scrum and why you have certain things, most people don't even know why they're there. So understand the systems, understand the psychology and the mindset, and then slowly the other two will fall into place. But feel free to connect. As I said, you can, if you have any questions or if you want, if you're interested in this stuff, but don't know where to look, connecting with me on LinkedIn, or it's just my first name, last name at Gmail, if you want to email me. But I hope that you found this valuable, and I gotta get back to the class. But thank you for having me, Bogdan and Boris, and hope to see some of you soon as well.
Thank you, Miljan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's take this opportunity to invite you in our next meetup. Next Wednesday, we have a topic psychologically and agility, and our guests are Sergey Makarin, Mario Zulic, and Luka Mitrovic. Meetup will be at 6 p.m., not at 7 p.m., just 6 p.m. because of time difference between Russia and Southern Europe. And yes, that's it. So Hope see you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you.
Bye.
Bye.